Friday 15 minutes podcast. Remember, we started this series of teaching on Monday, and this is going to be the last podcast in the week on the subject which I call right and wrong baptisms. Not right and wrong water baptism. Right and wrong baptisms. And we took our text from the book of 1 Corinthians 1:14-18, where Paul says, I thank God that I baptized none of you but Crispus and Gaius, lest any should say that I had baptized in my own name. And I baptized also the household of Stephanus. Besides, I know not whether I baptized any other. For Christ sent me not to baptize, but to preach the gospel, not with wisdom of words, lest the cross of Christ should be made of none effect. For the preaching of the cross of Christ, of the cross, is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of God. Now, what have I spoken in the last two episodes? I said, Jesus Christ attended water baptism. Christ couldn't have been a sinner who needed to be saved first from his own sin before he can save others, if water baptism is to remove sin. If water baptism has something to do with our salvation process, and if water baptism is part of what will save us and get us to heaven, then Jesus Christ got saved first so that I can go to heaven. And that's why we also need to get baptized so that we can get saved through water baptism. So we will need Jesus, because he was a sinner who needed to be saved. But you see, that is not true. That is not true. So Jesus did not attend water baptism because he was a sinner. Because if water baptism takes away sin, as a matter of fact, the first person that will be water baptized will be John the Baptist himself. Because listen to me, the sacrifice that the priest perform is to cover the sins of the people. So the Levites need to cover their own sins first before they cover the sins of other people. Now, if John the Baptist knows that water baptism takes away sin, in fact, the first person that will be water baptized was John the Baptist himself. But do you know what? I never read in the gospel that John the Baptist was baptized. Not anywhere. Even when he demanded that Jesus should baptize him, Jesus declined. So if water baptism has something to do with salvation, how come the Baptist himself was not baptized? Okay, let's continue, because we need to discover what is the right baptism. Now, why will anyone want to make water baptism a doctrine and a denomination today? Is a troubling question. It cannot be an essential part of the church practices today too, as many have taken it to be. And I think it shouldn't even be mentioned at all in our churches again today. And I will tell you the reason. Because even Paul himself said that he was not sent by Christ to baptize. In 1 Corinthians 1:17, he said, New Living Translation, for Christ didn't send me to baptize, but to preach the good news, and not with clever speech, for fear that the cross of Christ will lose its power. So, for Christ didn't send me to baptize, but to preach the good news. So according to Paul, in that passage of the scriptures above, water baptism is not the gospel. Water baptism is not supposed, so he doesn't preach it. That's what he says, for Christ didn't send me to baptize. For Christ didn't send me to baptize. So if Paul has baptized Gaius and another family, he did it in disobedience. He did it in disobedience. What did Christ send him to do? To preach the good news. Meaning that water baptism is not the gospel. It's not the gospel. I don't waste my time too preaching it either. Talk less of carrying anyone to the stream to baptize them. It was not among the syllabus for Paul to preach for men to be saved. That is the meaning. And how can a man who wrote about 2/3 of the New Testament books said, so if it is part of what saves us, said that if it's part of what saves us, and if care is not taken, we can begin to confuse the believers with what the cross of Christ has done for them, with what ordinary water from our dirty streams can do for their making it to heaven. Because water baptism was already a confusion to the believers, even in the church at Corinth, according to Paul in that 1 Corinthians 1:14-18. And Paul was also part of the confusion. Hear what Paul said. Paul said, I thank God that I baptized none of you but Crispus and Gaius. So he baptized Crispus and Gaius in disobedience to what Christ told him. He said, lest any should say that I baptized in my own name. And I baptized also the household of Stephanus. That was also in an error, because Christ didn't send him to preach the gospel. Besides, I know not whether I baptized any other. In verse 17, now say, for Christ sent me not to baptize. So Paul, why are you baptizing them? Are you listening to me now? He said, that's why you cannot crucify me. I said, Reverend Nuga, what do you mean? Why are you not baptizing? After Christ went for baptism, and Paul said he baptized Crispus and Gaius and the household of Stephanus. He did it in disobedience. He did it in disobedience. Now, those other people that Paul did not baptize, what is their fate? Now, why didn't Paul make it top agenda to baptize people that he saved? Can you imagine the number of churches that Paul saved, and Paul was not concerned about their water baptism? Because do you know what? Water baptism has nothing. In fact, he said Christ told him not to baptize. He said Christ didn't send him to baptize, but to preach the gospel. So water baptism was never part of the gospel. And that's what Paul is telling us. But to preach the gospel, not with wisdom of words, lest the cross of Christ should be made of none effect. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God. You cannot preach water baptism side by side with the cross of Christ today. If not, the cross will lose its power. The cross will lose its power. I've seen Baptist church today. I've not seen the cross church today. So people are looking for more water baptism than any other thing. And you need to listen to all the trash preached about water baptism today. Many trash. Some even claimed that they got delivered during water baptism, making the cross of Christ and the authority in the name of Jesus of none effect. If water baptism that some people defecated into with their cows could deliver them from demons outside the finished work of Christ. Now, those cows did not get delivered when they were shitting inside the water. But when human being ate inside the same water, he got delivered. Error. Actually, what they called deliverance during the so-called water baptism was actually demon possession. By mammy water spirits. Yes, by mammy water spirits. Those demons Jesus cast out of the man of the Gadarenes are still living inside that water in that Mark 5:1-7. I'm sure you know that Jesus Christ cast out devils to enter inside water, and you went inside water to go and do water baptism. In other words, you went in there as a delivered person, you came back as a possessed human being. Now look at Mark 5:1-7. And they came over onto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. The Gadarenes. So when you go into that water, you only went there to gather the demons into the country of the Gadarenes. And when it was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. The man came out of the tomb. You know why? Because those demons are demons of death. You will see them. That's why they were living in the tombs. Who are the people that live inside tomb? Dead people. So the demons are used to living in dead bodies. So if demons that are living in dead bodies possess a human being, what do you think they want to get out of that human being? They want to kill him. Who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could tame him? No, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, Come out of them, thou unclean spirit. Did you see that? Unclean spirit. Unclean spirit. So when you go into the water that is unclean, after they've defecated into it, people wash their clothes into it, cows went to it, the water is unclean. Those spirits like unclean places. And as he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils besought him, all the devils, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. And the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Did you see that? Demons inside water don't die. In fact, demons don't die. So water cannot kill them. Demons don't die. But when the demons rushed, possessed those heads and pushed them into the water, of course, the heads died. If the demon didn't kill them, the water killed them. But what the demon needed was that the demon needed a dead body to live inside. So they have to push those heads into the water so that they can enjoy living in dead bodies, because they were living in the tomb. So when they possessed the man, they took the man to the tombs, because they like to live in dead bodies, and they are unclean spirits, so they like unclean water. So when somebody take you to water to go and baptize you, listen to me, you only took it there to go and pack all those demons that Jesus cast out of the gathering people. Okay, on a serious note, the possibility of getting demonized during water baptism when you don't know the history of the water is very high. Like the one in that Mark 5:1-7. Now, did you just get what I just said now? Now, I've read that Mark 5:1-7. You can read it again on yourself. I've read that Mark 5:1-7 for you. Do you get what I'm talking about? Now, when you enter, can you imagine me now taking you? Oh my God, do you know what? I just ran out of time right now. But you see, you need to continue with me on Monday. It's serious. On Monday, I'm going to continue from this story of demon possess. So I will see you in our Monday 15 minutes podcast. From me here, I want to tell you that Jesus Christ is Lord.